So we were going to talk about the tiara.
Were we?
Yeah.
I thought it said no.
I know, but I just think it would look so fabulous if you
Yeah, but
did.
I've only got little tiny tiaras. They're not really worth it.
Queen Camilla entered the private jewelry consultation expecting a routine discussion about royal gemstones. She left with tears running down her face. Inside a velvet-lined case once belonging to Diana, Princess of Wales, senior jewelers had uncovered a concealed compartment containing handwritten letters addressed directly to Prince William. The messages carried instructions, memories, and one final declaration about Diana's legacy words that instantly transformed a private examination into a devastating royal confrontation. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. Camilla arrived at the Mayfair jewelry house with two palace representatives expecting control. The closed appraisal and examination used to verify condition, ownership, and display suitability concerned pieces once worn by Diana. The Queen believed the jewelers would discuss clasps, gemstone settings, and whether the collection could appear in a royal exhibition. William had authorized the inspection at Kensington Palace, but he expected nothing personal to emerge. He believed the case held gemstones and inventory numbers. He could not know that beneath its lining rested a message his mother had hidden from the royal household. The lead jeweler lifted the inner velvet panel and stopped. A false bottom had been built into Diana's sapphire necklace case. Beneath it lay 3 sealed envelopes, each marked with William's childhood nickname, and an instruction stating that only he could receive them. Camilla changed the instant she recognized the handwriting. She leaned toward the table, asked for the case to be closed, and said palace officials needed time to review the discovery. The craftsman refused. He explained that the letters had been witnessed, entered into the appraisal record, and placed under formal protection, a documented safeguard, preventing anyone except the named recipient from taking possession. Then one envelope was turned over. Across the back, Diana had written that the future king must protect his mother's legacy when others found it uncomfortable. Camilla stepped away. She tried to answer, but no words came. The monarch pressed one hand against a chair, fought for composure, and walked out in tears, leaving her gloves beside the open case. The jewelers saw that the letters concerned more than jewelry. Diana had written about William, Catherine, the royal children, and heirlooms whose intended recipients had never been publicly named. Before Camilla's car cleared Mayfair, the lead jeweler called Kensington Palace through a secure line. William listened without interrupting. Then he asked, "Has anyone else read my mother's words?" As he prepared to receive them, the discovery stopped being an appraisal and became a reckoning between Diana's son and the woman now standing where she once stood. For William, the envelopes were not simply historical documents. They were the voice of a mother whose absence had shaped every stage of his life. For Camilla, they represented something far more threatening. Diana, speaking across the decades, with an authority no royal title could erase. Between them stood King Charles, a husband and father forced to confront two versions of the past, one carefully managed by the palace, and another written in Diana's own hand. William had spent years protecting his mother's memory, without allowing grief to define his public life. Royal duty, the responsibilities carried by senior members of the monarchy, had taught him to remain composed even when pain struck deeply. Yet these letters were different. They had been written for him, hidden for him, and preserved until the moment he was ready to hear Diana's voice again. Camilla faced a different wound. She had built her position through patience, endurance, and Charles's constant support. The letters could not remove her title or change the line of succession, but they challenged something more fragile, the place she believed she had finally secured within the family. Diana's words still carried emotional power, and the Queen understood that no ceremony could silence them. William watched the senior jeweler place the velvet case on a table inside Kensington Palace. The residence served as his London home and private working base, but that afternoon, it felt less like a royal household and more like a room waiting for judgment. He did not touch the case. He stood behind a chair, gripping its edge, before finally sitting and tracing his mother's handwriting with one finger. Catherine remained beside him without trying to fill the silence. She moved the inspection documents away, lowered herself into the nearby chair, and waited. The princess understood that this moment belonged to William and Diana. Her restraint gave him something the palace rarely offered: permission to feel, before being expected to respond. Charles received the news through a written summary from his private secretary, the senior official responsible for managing the monarch's confidential business. He removed his glasses, placed them on the desk, and read the account twice. Then the king asked one direct question. Had Camilla attempted to delay the letters before they reached his son? The initial inspection revealed why the answer mattered. Diana had assigned William a personal duty to preserve several heirlooms as symbols of maternal continuity, keeping their meaning within the family, rather than allowing them to disappear into the general royal collection. William broke the first seal alone, but before he began reading, the jeweler's inventory exposed one final detail. Inside the second envelope rested a separate page bearing Catherine's name, written years before Diana could have known whom her son would marry. The mystery of that name led back to one forgotten appointment, one private promise, and the decision that would eventually send Camilla from the jeweler's room in tears. The letters had not been hidden by accident. Their journey began during a discreet appointment in the final period of Diana's royal life, when she entered the jeweler's private consultation room without palace officials and carried the sapphire case herself. What happened during that meeting became the point of no return. Diana did not ask for a repair or valuation. She asked for a promise that certain words and heirlooms would survive every title, marriage, and palace revision that followed. Diana trusted the Mayfair jewelry house because its craftsmen knew how to protect more than gemstones. She had used the firm for private adjustments and discreet maintenance, believing its records could preserve the history of each piece without turning every consultation into palace gossip. A royal inventory, the official record used to identify and track valuable objects, could protect ownership, but it could also strip an heirloom of its emotional meaning. The separation from Charles had sharpened that fear. Diana understood that jewelry linked to her life could one day be moved, renamed, or placed into a wider household collection. The king had once shared the world she was now trying to preserve, and she feared that future decisions around him might reduce intimate memories to numbered entries in a file. The decisive moment came on 18 November 1996. Diana sat across from the master jeweler as he opened an inventory book and explained that one sapphire piece had been temporarily listed under the general royal household rather than her personal archive. She closed the book herself, held his gaze, and said, "Then William must receive the truth separately." Diana removed several prepared envelopes from her bag and asked for writing paper. No aide sat beside her. No palace official heard what followed. She added one final page, writing steadily until she reached the warning that William might one day have to defend her memory from people he also loved. Her hand trembled, but she did not cross out the sentence. The master jeweler understood the weight of the request. He documented the agreement in a private account signed by both of them, then promised to conceal the letters inside the sapphire case. He would release them only if William personally authorized an inspection or if essential conservation exposed the compartment. Diana also wrote of a woman she could not yet name, someone who would stand beside William without trying to replace what he had lost. Years later, the jewelers added Catherine's name to the outer inventory when that description became impossible to ignore. Camilla eventually found another notation: personal maternal enclosure. She attended the appraisal because she already suspected Diana had left something behind. Camilla had entered hoping to control that discovery. Once the envelopes appeared, control vanished, and the confrontation began. The room became silent when Camilla ordered the sapphire case closed. The jewelers did not move. One palace aide stared at the table, while another reached toward the official inventory, uncertain whose authority mattered most. Then the lead craftsman pushed the letters farther away from Camilla and declared that Diana's written instruction named William as the sole recipient. In that instant, royal rank collided with professional duty, and neither side was willing to retreat. Camilla drew herself upright and invoked palace security procedure. She argued that anything delivered through the royal household had to remain under official control until it had been examined and cleared. The Queen knew that such procedures, the protective rules used to secure royal property and private material, could create the delay she needed. But the lead jeweler answered that handwritten correspondence was not the same as the gemstones surrounding it. The letters belonged to the person Diana had named. The craftsman opened the archival record and placed it beside the case. Diana's original authorization appeared on one page, followed by the signed account of the master jeweler who had witnessed her instructions in 1996. The firm had preserved both documents for years. Handing the envelopes to Camilla, Charles, or any palace official would break the promise recorded that day. Camilla stepped closer. She warned the jeweler that he did not understand what uncontrolled documents could do to a family already carrying decades of pain. Her voice remained low, but the fear beneath it was unmistakable. The craftsman held her gaze and answered, "Madam, the damage would come from withholding them." The words landed hard. Camilla demanded proof that Diana had intended to bypass the household. The jeweler lifted the outer instruction and read from the documented account. The letters, it stated, must be protected from any future household arrangement that may weaken William's connection to his mother. The Queen's expression changed. Diana had not named her, yet the warning felt painfully direct. Camilla asked everyone except her aide to leave so she could telephone Charles in private. The jewelers refused. They moved the sapphire case into the center of the table, where no person could touch it without every witness seeing. She made the call with them still present, telling the king that the letters were already being prepared for immediate delivery. Then the final blow came. A secure courier had been arranged for Kensington Palace. Camilla pressed her fingers against the back of a chair. Tears gathered before she could hide them. Her voice broke, and she left without collecting the gloves beside the open case. Charles's office quickly requested a temporary pause. William answered through his private secretary. The letters were to reach him immediately, sealed and untouched. The prince had secured possession. Now the deeper battle would begin over who controlled the consequences of Diana's words. Behind closed doors, the question was no longer whether William would receive the letters. He already had them. The real battle concerned what he could do with their contents. Charles wanted time. Camilla wanted protection from public humiliation, and palace advisors wanted every sentence classified. Yet Diana had chosen a method designed to bypass them all. Her instructions placed authority not in the crown, the household, or the reigning monarch, but in the judgment of her eldest son. Charles understood the danger immediately. He feared Diana's private wishes concerning royal jewels might conflict with official ownership records and trigger a struggle the family could not contain. Crown property, valuable objects held for the monarchy rather than owned personally by one royal, could not simply be reassigned through an emotional letter. The king therefore asked palace lawyers to separate her personal intentions from any demand affecting the institution. William refused to let legal language erase the deeper truth. He did not argue that every necklace, brooch, or sapphire automatically belonged to him. The prince made a stronger claim. His mother had entrusted him with the meaning attached to those pieces. The people meant to receive them, and the story the palace might otherwise reduce to inventory numbers. Charles read the first transcription alone in his study. He stopped at a passage describing William as the person who would one day unite duty with compassion. The monarch read those words again, lowered the pages, and stared at the closed door. Diana had placed faith in their son, but her confidence also exposed how carefully the king had managed the past. Camilla returned to Clarence House carrying that same wound. She entered a private sitting room and asked her staff to remain outside. When an aide offered tea, the Queen said she wanted nothing. She sat in silence, repeating Diana's warning about household arrangements that might weaken William's bond with his mother. Palace advisors moved quickly. They prepared a confidentiality agreement, a written promise preventing those involved from discussing protected information, covering the jewelers, couriers, and household staff. William rejected it. He would accept privacy, but not wording that treated Diana's letters as property of the palace. Then he acted. William ordered 2 certified copies. One would remain sealed in his personal archive. The other would be held by an independent legal custodian, a neutral professional, responsible for protecting sensitive documents. No advisor could alter them. No household could remove them. No future official could quietly reclassify them. The third letter changed the stakes again. Diana had written about a future granddaughter, and a jewel meant to pass through William's family line. That granddaughter was Charlotte. The discovery no longer belonged only to the past. It had begun shaping the next royal generation. The first consequence was not announced with trumpets or a palace statement. It happened quietly inside the Royal Collection Office. A registrar opened a display schedule, drew a line through Camilla's name, and removed Diana's sapphire pendant from an upcoming exhibition list. The piece would no longer appear under the Queen's patronage. By William's instruction, it was transferred into a protected family archive until Charlotte reached adulthood. One stroke of a pen changed everything. Camilla had been expected to open the exhibition herself. The event was designed to present royal jewelry as a symbol of continuity, showing how important pieces moved through generations while preserving the monarchy's public story. Her patronage, formal royal support given to an event or organization, would have placed the Queen at the center of that message. Diana's pendant had been chosen as one of its most powerful attractions. William could not allow it. After reading the third letter, he understood that placing the sapphire beneath Camilla's authority would directly contradict his mother's wishes. Diana had not preserved the piece so it could become part of a carefully managed display. She had connected it to family, memory, and a future girl who would carry her tenderness forward. Camilla received the revised program from a senior aide at Clarence House. She scanned the pages once, then returned to the section describing the exhibition's central pieces. The empty space beside Diana's name told her everything before the aide spoke. She placed the document on the table and asked whether William had personally ordered the removal. The aide answered carefully, yes. The prince had also restricted access to the pendant and directed that it be transferred into a protected family archive, a private collection preserved for named relatives, rather than general royal use. Camilla nodded once. She did not argue. She walked toward the window and remained there as the aide withdrew, closing the door behind him. The silence felt more humiliating than any public statement. William had not attacked her, yet his decision had drawn a line she could not cross. Diana's letter explained why. She had asked her son to preserve one sapphire piece for a future daughter or granddaughter who understood service without surrendering tenderness. William believed that description belonged to Charlotte, and he treated the instruction as a personal trust. Catherine accepted responsibility for safeguarding the pendant until her daughter was old enough to understand its history. She told William that the jewel would never be used to wound Camilla. But the princess also made clear that compassion could not require them to ignore Diana's intention. Charles reacted with controlled anger when he learned the exhibition had been changed without his approval. The king asked William to meet him alone. William agreed, but set one condition: no courtiers, secretaries, or lawyers. With every institutional barrier removed, father and son would finally confront whether peace demanded silence or truth. Charles and William met without aides, folders, or prepared statements. Between them sat only Diana's sapphire case and the 3 opened letters. For several minutes, neither man spoke. The king looked at handwriting he had not seen in decades, while his son waited for him to decide whether the past would once again be managed or finally acknowledged. Then Charles touched the edge of the case and admitted that Diana had understood William's burden long before anyone else did. William refused to let the meeting become a dispute over collection policy. A collection policy, the set of rules deciding how royal objects are owned, stored, and displayed, could explain where the sapphire belonged, but not why his mother had hidden it. The prince insisted that Diana had to be treated first as a mother who had written to her son, not merely as a former royal figure whose belongings required administrative control. Charles understood the distinction, but accepting it meant surrendering control. He admitted that Camilla had been frightened because Diana's memory still carried enormous power. The queen consort had spent years building a place beside him, yet one sealed letter could reopen every wound she believed the family had survived. William listened without interrupting. Then he answered with quiet force. Camilla's fear might explain her reaction, but it did not give her the right to delay, inspect, or interrupt words written by his mother for him. The future king had not entered the room seeking revenge. He wanted a boundary that no palace official could cross again. William placed one hand over the sapphire case. He told Charles that he would protect Diana's wishes, Catherine's dignity, and Charlotte's inheritance, without using any of them to publicly humiliate Camilla. The prince would not publish private passages simply to punish the present household, but neither would he permit peace to become another name for erasure. Charles lowered his eyes as William passed him the final page. Diana had written that old wounds could make a person cruel if they were carried too long. She asked her son to defend the truth without allowing pain to harden him against those he still loved. The king read the paragraph twice. Charles then withdrew the palace request to classify the letters as household material. He formally recognized them as William's private property and accepted the transfer of the sapphire pendant into a family trust, a protected arrangement holding an asset for a named relative until the agreed time. Before leaving, Charles closed the case himself. He returned to Clarence House to tell Camilla that William's decision would stand and that Diana's instructions would not be challenged. The family battle had ended. Beyond the palace gates, however, Camilla's abandoned gloves and tearful departure were already becoming impossible to hide. By morning, the private discovery had become a national story. The image dominating every broadcast was not of a jewel or a letter. It showed Camilla emerging from the Mayfair entrance with reddened eyes, one hand raised against the cameras, while a jeweler stood behind the glass holding Diana's sapphire case. That single frame captured the entire conflict. The present queen leaving in tears as the late princess's words began their journey to William. Buckingham Palace responded before the morning bulletins ended. The palace issued a brief statement confirming that personal correspondence connected to Diana had been delivered to William. A palace statement, an official message released on behalf of the royal household, usually exists to control uncertainty. This one did the opposite. It mentioned neither Camilla's distress nor the letter's contents, leaving the silence around both to grow louder. Broadcasters seized on that silence. One presenter described the discovery as a collision between inherited authority and emotional legacy. Another argued that Diana had reached her son without permission from the institution that had once controlled every part of her public life. The debate was no longer about a sapphire case. It was about whether love could carry more authority than rank. Camilla watched only the opening moments of the morning coverage at Clarence House. She remained still until the photograph appeared, then reached for the remote and switched off the television. When an aide entered carrying the day's newspapers, the Queen told her to remove them. She did not want to see the same moment turned into a headline again and again. William reacted differently. He instructed his communications team not to release a single excerpt from the letters. The prince would confirm that the handwriting was genuine and that Diana had left clear personal instructions, but he refused to weaponize her words. Protecting his mother did not require deepening Camilla's humiliation. Outside Kensington Palace, the public response became impossible to ignore. Visitors gathered beneath the gates and placed white roses beside photographs of Diana. The front page of the Daily Chronicle carried Camilla's tearful departure beneath one brutal headline, "Her words reach William at last." People stood quietly before it, reading the words as though the past had suddenly returned. The jewelry house then released one carefully measured sentence through a documented press statement. It confirmed that the letters had been preserved under direct personal instruction and delivered to their rightful recipient. The firm revealed nothing more, yet the wording strengthened William's position, without exposing Diana's private voice. That evening, Kensington Palace prepared the final announcement. It would confirm the future of the letters, the sapphire pendant, and Charlotte's connection to her grandmother's legacy. The world had witnessed Camilla's pain. Now William's decision would define what that pain ultimately meant. The final decision carried neither triumph nor revenge. William confirmed that Diana's letters would remain private, protected within his personal archive, while their instructions would be honored in full. The sapphire pendant would pass into a family trust for Charlotte, and Catherine would serve as its custodian until her daughter was ready. Camilla retained her title, Charles retained his marriage, and William retained something more personal than either his mother's unedited voice and the right to protect it. Kensington Palace confirmed the conclusion through a formal written statement. The Residence Communications Office, the team responsible for releasing official information on behalf of William and Catherine, declared that all three letters belonged exclusively to the prince. No palace committee, household department, or future exhibition organizer would possess the authority to reinterpret Diana's words, suppress them, or claim control over them. Catherine accepted responsibility for preserving the sapphire pendant after it was permanently withdrawn from institutional display. A family trust, a protected legal arrangement holding property for a named relative, would secure the jewel until Charlotte reached an age when she could understand its history. The princess would not simply inherit a valuable object. She would receive the full story of the grandmother she never met, and the tenderness Diana had hoped would survive through another generation. William signed the trust papers in silence. He returned the letters to their velvet case, opened the final page once more, and read his mother's closing words. The future king then lowered the lid and placed both hands over it, before allowing the independent custodian to seal the archive. Nothing had been erased. Nothing had been surrendered. Charles delivered the decision to Camilla personally at Clarence House. The king told her that the palace would make no challenge, and that Diana's instructions would stand. She remained deeply wounded by the language inside the letters. Yet the Queen finally accepted that they were a mother's last communication with her son. They could not morally belong to anyone else. William also rejected every proposal to publish the most damaging passages. He would not turn private pain into public revenge. By protecting Diana's words and shielding Camilla from further humiliation, the prince proved that compassion did not require silence, and truth did not require cruelty. The monarchy now faced a boundary it could never again ignore. Reconciliation with the present could not depend upon erasing the past. Diana's memory would stand beside the current royal household, not beneath it. Camilla's tears marked the moment authority discovered its limits. The letters removed no queen, destroyed no marriage, and created no constitutional crisis. They returned a mother's voice to her son and secured her legacy for his children. There was nothing left to contest. The letters were sealed, the pendant was protected, and Diana's wishes had reached the family she intended, ending decades of uncertainty with dignity, sorrow, and emotional justice. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.